The Eve of Christmas, a standard English translation dedicated to Oscar Antonson and Jim Camp by Frank Antonson, copyright 1977 by Frank Antonson. On Christmas Eve, the wind spun round to east. The clouds moved down to touch the mountain wall. The homestones early warmed both man and beast. Court felt the chill, then gave his cows a call. Before the glow of dawn the snow would fall. As cold as this, the cows had best be penned. From near the barn he heard their mournful bawl. They knew as well as he not to contend with what the worst of winter was about to send. The sleighs would come before the hour of 8. The neighbors all around would sure not miss the Christmas party. They could hardly wait. For years now, Wedge's masterwork was this, a Christmas dance. Each girl would get a kiss before the night was out. Romance begun by many a local pair. The Christmas bliss of Wedge's dance would surely not be done when winter thawed and mountain creeks began to run. The farmers of Dutch Corner planted seed when May had warmed the ground and dried the wet of April. Wedge, though, chose the cold. Then he'd call forth the young and old. As one they met, as one they'd dance and sing and drunken get. A mighty finger there could feel the beat of pulse of all Dutch Corner's joy and fret. As Star and Susan seasoned the roasting meat, they saw the first sleigh up on Jew Hill's frozen wheat. This was the first that y'all had seen Wedge Farm, a dark and silent hollow far below the horse and sleigh that, as if to a charm, stopped and paused within the mountain's bow at Jew Hill turn. I guess we'd better go. The voice of Mr. Lingenfelter broke the spell, and down Jew Hill the sleigh and snow sang to the family and y'all, their guest of smoke and fire and warmth and cheer, of snap and popping oak. From several miles around the sleighs drew near, and soon the stables of the inn were full. Within the inn, Court tapped a keg of beer. He felt his nephew give his coat a pull. "Can I have some?" Court was a man of rule. He gestured sternly at the little boy. A strong and proud man, still he was not cruel. But Wedge, his father, did sometimes annoy the warrior who would soon the invader's grip destroy. Old Mattern and old Wedge had found their seats beside the fire's warmth. They both danced good, but there they'd sit and talk and of Danes and Geats. For 20 years they'd known old Gafferhood. They liked to watch the calf and heiferhood of offspring of their offspring. Star stayed near the side of Wedge. Sneff eyed the food. He too, and Marby, never missed a year. Together still, the group was soon to thin, I fear. Court went to meet his Lingenfelter friend, who came inside with all his family round, and introduced his guest, Jarl Jorgensen, the border guard who recently had found the trail outsiders used to smuggle down into the county. Slipping by the guards, already Overtree had come to abound with beggars, AWOL soldiers, wandering bards, a town of foreign accents and women who read cards. Though Court had been the one addressed, all heard, a stranger was not something to ignore. Court made him guest. If of y'all he had conferred with other warriors like his friend before. The boy was known by men for mountain lore. His family, though, was best known in the town of Underwood before that day of gore when under the steel of war they burned it down. Never would the memory of that deed leave this county's ground. And the cry of secession began to strike up and resound. and the hooves of the horses of fate began to pound. Now Jarl was a Swede in the county and corner of Germans. The hue of his hair and the length of his limb declared this, and the girls tomorrow would listen devoutly to sermons. But tonight they'd see if they might get blessed with a kiss. For Jarl, this boy with the honor of men, would not miss being offered the sparkle of eye and the shine of girl's smile. Yes, he'd get the flirtatious attention of what girl he wished. But the maids of Dutch Corner gave no more for a long, long while. Y'all come sit with us men, it was wedged. To the girls, this was robbery vile. In spite of the fret and the fuss and the heat of the kitchen, young Jewel, Court's daughter, was humming and dancing with joy. For all of her memory, she'd spent all of autumn just itching for Wedge's big party, not some Christmas gift or some toy. For only 2 years, Jewel had known of the meaning of coy. A heifer, Wedge called her, and loved her as dear as a child, a flower of the mountain to be found by some lucky boy. She was pretty and springy, though as kind and as pure as she was wild. Court tempered the grandfather love with a fatherly will far from mild. Jewel passed through the door of the kitchen to see those outside. She saw all her nephews and cousins and pesky old friends. She worked so that she might have time for at least one fast ride down the sled road her brothers built, all full of jumps, chutes, and bends. Her work done, she soon left her mother to clean up loose ends, and out through the door of the kitchen she shot like a gun. Wedge grabbed her in passing. "Hey, girl, now let's make us amend. You've a guest here to meet, and his name, Jewel, is Jarl Jorgensen." As quick as that, who saw it done? Her heart was won. Now I may be old, but I'm not quite as senile as that. I can tell when a young man would like to go sled riding now. But Jarl was standing where only a second before he had sat. "Do you want to go sled riding?" Jewel made a quick little bow. Young Jarl lost all his cool, and he jumped and he shouted, "And how?" But in losing his cool, Jarl thus gave it to Jewel, who then took his hand. Jewel was shy, but it seemed like this might be allowed. Then out to the cold and the snow, Mattern gave them a look. "I'd say they won't be cold," he said. "I never saw quite so instant a hook." "You're right," said Wedge. "You know, I like that boy. She seemed to too, but that's not our affair. Your granddaughter, Jewel, don't bother with no ploy," said Mattern, who for 40 years didn't dare to use no double negative, no when nor where. The gaffers soon left romance to the young. Instead, about the past, they blew hot air. They talked of Keats and smoking donkey dung, of whether border guards should learn to fight Fu Kung. "But we shouldn't talk of war on Christmas Eve," grouched Mattern, barred, while shouting for more beer. "If you would just admit that you believe in Christ," said Wedge, "and call babe Jesus dear, I'd have to find some other thorn, it appear, to prick your side with." Excuse the metaphor. Stormed Mattern. "Now if Court don't bring more beer, the foundation wall will soon have a wedge-shaped door." Then Susan came, who served him beer, like slopping a boar. The poet must hand it to Susan and Starr for their lives of service, devotion, attention, adoration, and love for this pair of gross bards. Who would want to be with them as wives? The ethologist teaches, though, no mate will leave her own dove, but now Jewel and Jarl with their sled on Jew Hill were above the inn with its lights and its noise, and its beer, and its barge. Now Jewel was uneasy. There wasn't much that she knew of to explain how she'd acted with y'all of the border guards. But something had melted the midwinter snow and the ice of their hearts. No moon lit their way, and no stars lit the dome of the sky. Far up on Jew Hill they could reach up and touch the sky's snow, that the heavy clouds bore ever lower as the wind blew them by. The further away, the more warm looked the lights far below, and the spell of the hugeness, the blackness, the quiet, the flow of the world brought the young pair together. They both pulled the sled, and all of that black was dethroned by the tiniest glow, a billion years old, one that always has carefully led life and love into time, not to let them get lost and to die with the dead. They couldn't stand long at the top of the Christmas Eve world, though y'all would have stood there and froze just to be there with Jewel. But Jewel had more sense, and soon down through the blackness they hurled. Once again, y'all the man, y'all the hero, still boy, lost his cool. To fly down through the dark on a track of pure ice took a fool, and he hadn't the trust in the skill of Jewel's brothers in snow. Each winter they carved a great chute just to shovel their tool. In very few seconds they rolled to a stop far below. You'd have thought y'all was Santa if you'd have just heard him ha ha and ho ho. When y'all had stopped rolling and laughing, he was suddenly still. He felt the dear body that lay in his arms in the dark. And Jewel chuckled softly, then squeezed y'all to ward off the chill. He kissed her so gently her lips barely made out the mark. The world was so hushed for an instant. Court's dogs began to bark. That tiniest glow of a fire as the couple got up. It seemed like this for sure ever since Noah opened his ark. Their hearts were so full and they both were one cup. Said Jewel, y'all, this snow'll soon be melting on us. We'd best shortly go up. Then inside the inn, they were met with the blast of the heat and the smell of mulled cider, the noise of the talk and the stares of the guest who knew well that not cold but a strong young heartbeat brought the flush to the faces of such young, lone sled-riding pairs. Jewel was proud, as Court's daughter should be, and she put on no airs. There was now food and drink, apple bobbing and caroling and fun, until finally the two, with exhaustion, sank into some chairs. Next were Mattern and Wedge, neither one wanting to be outdone, were shouting. Mattern wished he'd a gun. Wedge just grinned and enjoyed his own pun. Abruptly, Wedge stood. He said he thought he'd go take a walk. He'd go looking for Christmas. He said, have to find it by morn. Star was minding the cider, or she would have stopped all such talk. Don't forget it was this very night that our Savior was born. Wedge put on his wool coat so shabby he called it well worn. He pulled on his boots. Mattern eyed him all huffy and pissed. Wedge put on his cap that his black dog had played with and torn. He gave Jewel a smile. I can see clear as day where you was kissed. With that he was gone. What a silly old fool of a dork, Mattern hissed. The mountain had called Wedge. It did so at strangest of times. Through the black of the night he walked up past the barn to the gate of the cornfield. The night was so cold he could hear Plainfield's chimes. 'Neath his feet in the snow lay the corn seed, offspring of the late grim reaping that through the long sleep now of winter would wait for the sun and the wet of the spring, to remind it of life. Wedge pondered. He slowed in his step. He could not keep this rate. "Oh, great mountain," he said, "go cram it, go play on a fife. It's too cold for your calling me. Too bad you can't curl in bed with a wife." Now just as Wedge said this, the wind swept the brow of the hill. In that breeze he could smell that hard snow was just minutes behind. Now he walked in the path that was windswept and descended until he returned to the barn, where he thought he might still chance to find the Christmas he looked for. He'd ask all the animal kind if they knew of its whereabouts. Inside the barn it was warm. All the animals heard him and felt him, but they didn't mind. Since the time they were born, they'd related to this wiry form. Wedge climbed into the hay feeder, lay down, and rested. A regular dorm. "What the heck are you doing?" pawed and snorted the big old black bull. "Tonight we have Christmas. We don't want to hear your fool talk. Oh, great bull, though it's dark, I can still see that you're beautiful." In the middle of all his big huff, that word made the bull balk. Now the heifers and cows thought this funny. They started to mock. The pony, the goat, all the chickens, the hogs, and the cat made Wedge welcome. He served as a key their good moods to unlock. They all talked for a while until, "Hush," said the hog. "What was that?" "I'll just bet you 5 corn cobs to 1 that it's Charlotte or Templeton rat." And now they all heard it, a noise in the straw mow above. It was not in the hay mow, and this was no time to be fed. In the straw mow, the only one living was that lonely white dove. Now old Wedge wondered too, though he knew well how scratchy a bed loosest hay made. Not so with straw. There's no pillow for head that is softer, more warm. Just like that, Wedge knew what was up there, and he pondered anew, and he asked of his heart, would they wed? As Jules' grandfather, what should he do in a moment so rare? Wedge considered and thought on the things of this world, of the ugly and fair. As he lay there and pondered and wondered, Wedge started to hear an old language, the oldest of man, one that's never been wrote. There's no language of wisdom, no language of truth that's more clear, yet the message it carried could not be repeated by poet. And as full on the heart as a birth or a death, now it smote the old poet, who lay still, closed his ears to the song of the young. The unspeakable honesty issued from deep in their throat, and soon Wedge was sleeping. On scratchy old hay his head hung. But by the time that the song and the spell of the lovers had softly been sung,